Good afternoon or evening, everyone that is out there. And as is, welcome to another episode of Strategic Non-Compliance. Me here with Mike Bluehair. Mike, you're able to hear me, right? Just making sure.
Yeah, man, I'm ready to do the show. Let's make it happen and stuff and things and other things. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Oh, and what's going to be fun with this one is we'll talk about our some past enjoyments with Troll Time, but oh, man. It is definitely the calm before the storm. Tomorrow is going to be the open carry protest event over there in Olmos Park. I can't wait to see what happens. What about you, Mike?
You know, if this municipality had the brains God gave a turnip, they would put their cops on notice and make them behave themselves and mind their P's and Q's during this protest and remain very calm and measured in their response if they were smart about it. I'm kind of half expecting them to do this because my biggest flaw is that I assume people are more intelligent than they actually are, and I'm inevitably disappointed. But that's my prediction. If they're, you know, above room temperature IQ, they're going to behave in a very calm and measured way.
No, let's hope so. I mean, Open Carry Texas president there was expecting that, and then the police chief himself was involved in his police brutality incident. So,
right. I mean, if snatching a protest out of someone's hand and pinning them to the ground and, you know, not immediately, you know, just even hiring or tolerating officers that would make comments about raping women on his force is any kind of indicator of the you know, leadership of that police outfit, I'm not hopeful. You know, hopefully there's someone on city council that has given them some sort of an administrative talking to, and hopefully they're calm and they're not confrontational.
yeah. Let's see here. I need to double check because I think my settings have yeah, why do they keep resetting here? Alright, that should fix that. Anyway, let us go ahead. As always, our intro music is generally from TechnoAxe. We do play a few other people's royalty-free music that allows us to do stuff. Remember, if you like some royalty-free stuff for YouTube, your YouTube videos and live streaming, make sure you check out TechnoAxe there. But, as is, let's go ahead and jump into Open Carry's Texas thing there, where they talk about what to expect tomorrow. And this was uploaded onto SextyPrez channel here, so.
How you doing, guys? Hope everybody's ready for the big day tomorrow. I sure am. It can't get here fast enough for me. Ready for the big day tomorrow. I sure am. It can't get here fast enough for me. First, I want to explain to you why we waited this long to put this video out. And it really comes down to all week long, we've been getting information. I don't really want to say too much more than that because I don't want to give away our piano. Is looking at every possible way that he can throw a monkey wrench into our program. So I didn't want to give him any kind of advance notice of what we were up to until it was really too late for him to really try and do anything. So that's why we decided to wait until now to put this out. And I just wanted you to know that. So let's jump into things. The first thing I want to tell you is I want you to remember, guys, we're the good guys. Valenciano and his band of whatever you call them, they're not police officers. They're the bad guys. We are not. We're the good guys. We're fighting for what's right. We're doing what's right. So when we go down there tomorrow, we need to behave like the good guys. And specifically what I'm talking about is 95% of the comments, the messages, the feedback that we've gotten from this has been really good. But about 5%, maybe less, just a very small part, but a certain amount, has been from people that made it crystal clear that they intend to come down there and start trouble. Well, if you're one of those people that intends to come down there and start trouble, stay the hell away from us. We're not going down there to pick a fight with this guy. We're not going down there to see what we can make happen other than the right thing. We are trying to make him do the right thing. We're trying to make him follow the law. We may have to respond to something that he does, but we're not going down there to start any trouble. I want to make that crystal clear. And if you're one of the people that intends to do that, go have your own event, but stay the hell away from us, period. Okay, let's get into some specific information. Parking and the rally point. The rally point is going to be at 3898 Howard Street. That's right on the corner of Howard and Odell. There's a triangular shaped kind of a field there, and on the north side of that field is city-owned property, so we can be there. We can assemble on that piece of land, and that's where we're going to get together at. That's where the rally point is. It's just a couple of blocks from where we're going to start off at, which is the corner, the exact same corner where Jim and CJ got attacked. So 3898 Howard Street. Look that up on your GPS, and it's really easy to find. From North Star Mall, 410 on the north side, you just get off at McCullough and head south. Go down to, I think it's Dora, take a right, take a left on North Main, and boom, you're on Odell, and there it is. So look that up, 3898 Howard Street. The parking is going to be curbside parking on the streets right around there, specifically Earl, Howard, and North Main. Now, we'll have people out there to direct you to where the parking is. There's a ton of parking. There's probably enough parking for 300 cars between all of the areas. Again, that's Earl Street, Howard Street, and North Main Street. There's some on Odell and some of the other cross streets, but those three, Earl, Howard, and North Main, are mainly commercial-ish type streets, and there's free curbside parking. It's not no parking zones. It's just right there. Nobody's going to get towed. We have all of that ironed out, and it's really, really close. It's 2 or 3 blocks away from the rally point. It's 2 or 3 blocks away from where we're starting off. So that's it. We do have some alternate locations, some backup plans. I'm not going to announce that here because I don't want to give Valenciano a heads up, but we do have them. And so if anything goes wrong, anything at all, we have actually 2 backup plans. Got some businesses down there that are a little bit supportive of what we're doing, and they said we could use their place if we need to, and if we need to, that's exactly what we'll do. So just bear that in mind. Before we get started at the event tomorrow, we're going to have a short pre-event briefing. There's going to be some stuff that I'm not going to announce on the internet at all because I don't want him to know it, such as our route, our particular route that we're going to take. I don't want him to be able to get in position because we have heard through the grapevine that he's going to actually try and block us out of his little town. If you can believe that. This un-American bastard thinks that it's the old days of get out of town. Well, he's going to find out that it's not. So we're going to have this pre-event briefing. That's where all the details will be revealed. Anybody that has any questions can ask them then, and we'll just get everything settled, get all the I's dotted and all the T's crossed, and go get this thing done. I can tell you that we do plan to wind up at the Olmos Park City Hall. We'll just leave it at that. Now, something specific that I wanted to talk about, just to give folks an idea. And remember, this is just what I'm doing. This is, everybody's a grown-up. Carry what you want the way you want to. I'm just going to tell you what I'm doing. 2 of the tactics that the un-American bastard Valenciano has used has been to demand to see a handgun license and to use that as an excuse to cuff people and search them to.
Are you trying to pause it, man?
Give it up. And then the other one is to arrest people for disorderly conduct, carrying in a manner calculated to alarm. So here's what I'm going to do to take those options away from them. I'm not going to carry my sidearm. If I don't have a pistol on me, the man can't demand to see a pistol license. Now, we all know, I know what you're thinking, he can't demand it anyway without a crime. That's true, but it has not been settled in court. And what that means is, even though we know what the truth is, there's nothing concrete
Okay, I don't know what's going on there. Keep saying that, keep saying that I'm doing it, but I'm not touching anything. Anyway, I want to point out specific, what he's referring to is this has actually been a huge kerfluffle with the changes with the open carry law over in Texas, where it was thought that, well, by a majority of the Senate and people who are working on the bill for that there didn't need to be any thing in the bill specifically stating that police can't demand, or just randomly demand a person to give up their CHL or provide it to an officer that's inquiring about it. And there was one actual senator, lawmaker, who actually stood up and tried to say we need to put this in there. And it turns out that he was right, that there needed to be something in there, and now it's up for the courts to decide unless they go back and revise the bill, which I don't think will easily happen without a huge major push. And even then, if there's an attempt to revise the bill, who's to say they don't go and completely rip it apart?
You know, what frustrates me most about this, Bunny, is the Fourth Amendment is written in plain frickin' English. You know, like, it's law enforcement pushing these boundaries, like, you know, just in blatant opposition to the whole spirit of it. And that really irritates me. They claim that they're supposed to be upholding law when the law is clearly established that people should be safe in their papers, persons, and effects, and, you know, against all unreasonable searches and seizures. We all know the fourth, but like, it's very frustrating.
Oh yeah, very much. And it's amazing how they try to push. I mean, it's sort of like I mean, a really good common example is with California and a few other states that have been they shifted up, where it's like, oh, well, we got away with doing DUI checkpoints, but you know what? Let's do a driver's license checkpoint. We're going to stop every so many people and do a driver's license check. And I'm like, that goes outside the bounds of what is sort of legally allowed, technically, with the whole DUI checkpoint stuff. So, but yeah, it's like a violation of, and the courts have said it. Yes, it is a violation of the Fourth Amendment, but a justified one. I'm just like, it's not supposed to work that way.
I mean, you can read the Fourth Amendment to a 6-year-old child and they'll understand it. You know, like, what's the excuse for these cops? You know, that there is no logical or rational excuse.
Well, I mean, as David Ahmad there, the vice president of Cary, Texas, stated that that police force is the bad guys. They don't care about doing the right thing. They just want to get their way.
It's willful ignorance on their part. You know, obviously. Yeah.
And I'm wondering, is the police department, well, is the police even going to attempt to push that issue with, because I'm pretty sure there's going to be a few people that will be open carrying a handgun. And I'm wondering how that's all going to go down. Without a doubt, I know there's going to be people there that will probably push that specific issue. But let's go ahead and continue here.
Him, you can't do that. It's one of those iffy things in the law, which gives him a little bit of wiggle room and allows him to do it. And he has done it. Now, maybe he'll get held accountable for doing that, but there's nothing that says don't do it. So I'm going to take that option away from him. I'm just not going to carry my sidearm. I'm not going to need it anyway. So I'm not. The second thing is, I'm going to carry my long gun either on my shoulder or across my back. Jack Miller was standing on a public sidewalk on the side of the road with his AR hanging from a chest rig right here in front of him, minding his own business. He was literally looking at his phone when the cops rolled up. Didn't have his hand on his rifle. He was doing what we've done 1,000 other times before. But he was arrested and charged, and is still charged with disorderly conduct, carrying in a manner calculated to alarm. We all know that charge is going to get thrown out, but he still went to jail, and he still had to bond out. It was still something that Valenciano, the un-American bastard, used, the un-American bastard, Jack in handcuffs and stick him in a squad car and go stick him.
Okay, dude, what are you touching? Because you're making it go back and forth. Mike, you there? Mike. Oh, you muted the mic.
Yeah, I muted the mic because I was coughing. I'm not touching anything. I'm just looking at different windows, but not from inside the Watch Together.
Yeah, so, well, it's having some weird impact on the thing, so just giving you that heads up. It's making it jump back and forth, whatever the hell you're doing.
Okay, or it's just a technical problem, but I'll just chill out and see what happens.
Him in a cage, and it took Jack almost 20 hours to get out of jail. I'm going to take that away from him. If you have a rifle in front of you where it's easy to grab it and be at the low ready, we know that doesn't mean anything, but it does make it easier for Valenciano to argue that you're trying to scare people. If it's on your shoulder, or even better, on your back, and he tries to argue that, it just makes him look stupid. And probably makes it easier for you to win the lawsuit. So that's what I'm going to do, just to take those things away from him. I'm gonna block him out of that. I'm not going to give him anything to use against me. You're a grown American. Do what you want to do. I'm just giving you an example of what I'm going to do and why, the strategy behind why I'm going to do it that way. Okay, let's see next. There's been a little question about some outside security company coming in to protect us at this event. Open Carry Texas doesn't need anybody to protect us. Now, there are going to be people from a security outfit that show up there, but no. Open Carry Texas does not need security guards. We don't need bodyguards. That's kind of like the Marine Corps asking the Coast Guard to protect them. It's just silly. So, no, there's not going to be any outside security company. The businesses down there. Part of our backup plan involves some of the businesses down there who said they support us and they'll back us up. So while we're down there, I want you to remember to respect those businesses that are down there. They're in the business of whatever business they're in. They're not in the business of activism, fighting for gun rights, any kind of politics. And they have customers that come from every bit of the political spectrum. Some are pro-gun, some hate guns. There's no telling. What we don't want to do is put those businesses in the position of having to take a side. So if we want to go and get something to eat, go buy a Coke somewhere or whatever the case may be, let's just do it the way they ask us to do it. I mean, that's only right. That's what the good guys do, so we're the good guys. Let's act like it. Videos. Everybody do videos. Live stream if you can. Again, this guy, Valenciano, I've never, those of you that know me, you know that I'm never at a loss for words. This guy, it's mind-boggling. I don't know, I've never seen anything even close to this, and I don't know how many rallies I've been to. I don't know how many events and open carry walks and so on and so forth that I've gone to or even planned. I've never seen a police department and a police chief even close to this guy. And so there's no telling. There is literally no telling what this guy's going to do. I'm not trying to scare you, but I am trying to be honest with you. They may show up out there in full riot gear. For all I know, they're going to. We do know that they've enlisted or attempted to enlist the help of several other law enforcement agencies around there. Funny thing, 2 of them said, no, we're not helping you. We don't want any part of this crap. And then some others are going to be in the area, sort of on standby, but not necessarily to support him. They're going to be there to support what's right.
Bunny, I'm trying to pause it.
Okay.
But anyway,
I paused it. What did you guys say?
It's very telling when other law enforcement agencies are not cooperating. It shows that this, Valenciano guy is just off the hook. It's very telling. Usually they're more than willing to step in and go to a protest in another county or at another agency for the juicy overtime. Now, when police are when agencies are turning down overtime pay, when their base pay is so high for law enforcement, that is saying something. That is quite a statement, and that's all I want to say.
Okay, I'll hit play again.
He has sent out the bat signal. He's calling for help. And who knows who all's going to show up. I have no idea how many men he's going to have at his disposal and what they're going to do. They may do nothing. We may not even see them. Or they may show up out there in full riot gear and tell us that we can't come into their little town. So be ready to do videos. This guy's already got 2 definite lawsuits coming, an almost definite 3rd, and probably a 4th. If we could add a whole bunch more to that, because we have video proof that he's out there breaking the law himself, that just makes it that much more likely that he gets out of the law enforcement profession, which is precisely where he needs to be. That guy, He doesn't need to be the dog catcher. So anyway, do videos, and if you can, live stream. That's going to be pretty important. Again, we're going to have a short pre-op briefing tomorrow, just to lay out the details for everybody, and that's where most of the questions will get answered. If you have any questions, I want you to remember something. I'm pretty busy trying to organize all this, so don't send me a message with a tiny little unimportant detail. But if you have something that's really important that you just absolutely have to know, you're welcome to send me a private message, and if I can, I'll answer it. Otherwise, the better thing to do would be to just wait until tomorrow, because I'll be there. Rick Briscoe will be there. A lot of the OCT people are going to be there, and we can nail everything down then. We have all the details down. I just don't Valenciano know what we're up to. So we'll reveal everything tomorrow at the briefing, and then we'll go out and get this thing done. So I'm pretty tired. I'm going to try and get some rest, and I will see you guys tomorrow.
There you have it, from Open Carry, Texas directly. And yeah, whatever the hell keys you're hitting over there to switch tabs is actually screwing with the watch together. So,
is it making it stop?
No, you're making it skip back like about 2 or 3 seconds.
Yeah, that's a computer glitch. I need to be able to switch windows so I can actually do the show. So like, that's a problem, because I'm even on other tabs, you know, like in a different window. That's ridiculous.
Yeah, I know. As I said, yeah. Everything's it's all a marriage of mishmash technology that I've assembled, and I'm still trying to figure out how to get it to work properly with people that are not technically savvy. So, but go ahead, Mike.
Well, I want to get back to the point I was making, is that other municipalities are passing over overtime pay for this, and they're not showing up. He said he knows of 2 agencies that said they didn't want any part of this. That's very telling. You know, that's very, very telling that this cop and this municipality is unequivocally in the wrong.
Oh, well, and the thing is it seems to be a big problem, not just with the police department. It seems there's also a little bit of a problem with the community too, in general at large. We'll sort of get a little bit into that here, and shortly after a few more things here. But yeah, there's definitely a telling issue with that police department, and without a doubt, yeah, there's multiple lawsuits, and this is actually a very small municipality. In fact, I'm gonna go ahead and pull it up on the screen so this way people can see how actually big Olmos Park is. Let's see here. Let me Park, Texas. Okay, well, we're gonna get a good idea here of how large Olmos Park is. This is Olmos Park, and as is, we'll go ahead and do a quick size here. Let's see, measure distance from here to roughly here. So we are looking at just about 4,700 feet. Not even, just shy of 1.5 kilometers on its east to west. That's less than a mile right there. Well, actually, I think that's just right at a mile.
Man, I've organized protest marches that are longer than that town.
And okay, let's take a look at the north, south to north thing. Let's see here. Measure distance from here to, we'll just do it right there. Let's see, measure distance there. That is just over a mile itself. It at 1.17 miles. So literally, it is a square mile. Well, short of a square mile entirely, because you for those that are looking at the video here, yeah, you can. Oh, NJ Diver says it's 0.6 square miles is how big this municipality is.
Yeah, I've started marches on Facebook that have been the lengthwise across the middle of that easily.
And you want to know what's really funny? Do you want to know how much tax revenue this town pulls in roughly each year?
$45.
About $4.5 million. Give or take $1 million.
I was just being facetious.
Oh, yeah. Surprisingly, this has a large tax base in its small size. So, I'll let you guys connect the dots on that and the kind of mentality we're probably dealing with for, well, activists are dealing with over in that area.
Open carry Texas could, you know, conceptually sue this town out of existence.
Well, not just Open Carry Texas. Remember, there's other activists that were involved in investigating Olmos Park before Open Carry Texas stepped in.
Of course.
And they're the ones that got the first lawsuits that are going to be going against this.
Right. I smell a class action. They should all band together.
But yes, you are very well correct. This city is at risk of being sued out of existence just because of the civil rights violations that have been done by the police department.
Yeah, man, this is beyond the pale of logic and reason. It really is.
Yeah, and so this is going to be interesting on how all this goes happen. But yeah, it's a very small town. And let's see here. And this is the area where they plan on, well, let's see here. I think it was they're planning on meeting up right around this area near Kenwood Park. And in which case, then, literally, Mark, it's not even, it's like 2 blocks of a walk before you enter the township of Olmos Park, or the municipality there. It just goes to show you how much you have. There's at least 4 individuals involved. Yeah, and with possibly more coming out. There's the police department and the city itself has screwed up massively with how they've handled this entire situation. But what's also, there's more interesting news. Thank you, Batosai, for doing great coverage of what's going on around there. I'm gonna go ahead and load this next part up because this is important information.
Alright guys, got some news for you. So Hollywood Park, which is also located in the San Antonio city limits, it's probably on the outside of it, they also had a similar ordinance that was almost word for word with Olmos Park and city of Alamo Heights. Just this Tuesday they repealed their ordinance. So that's a total of 3 cities that have removed their ordinance prohibiting people from carrying long guns unless you're an authorized police officer. So that's another breaking news. The open carry rally is still going to be in the works. It's still planned. It's still going to be planned. It's not canceled. Just because they repealed the ordinance doesn't mean the rally is going to be canceled. So far, it looks like over 800 people are going to be there, and it's going to be big. I'll include an article in the description box below for you guys to read. It's a very in-depth article, so if you guys want to check it out, you can. For those of you that are interested in a rally, it's going to be April 7th at noon. If you guys are interested, or if you guys are looking for details, just message me. Either email me or message me on Facebook or YouTube, and I'll get back to you on where we're going to be meeting at. I don't know if I am going to definitely record. Possibly may even have my drone in the sky just to keep a lookout from above. But, you know, this is... It changed.
Dude, come on, man.
I'm not doing anything.
Really? You're not touching it? It's just doing that on its own?
Nope. I'm in a different browser. I'm on Google Chrome right now, and the Watch Together is on Firefox.
Strange. Anyway,
yeah, man.
Okay. It gave the basic overview. Pretty much, there's been San Antonio also has a similar ordinance, similar kind of ordinance dealing with around in the chamber, but they all have these. There's several townships in municipalities around the surrounding area, including San Antonio, that have firearms ordinances that violate state law. Because the way the state law is set up is there can't be a county ordinance or a municipal ordinance that supersedes the state statute. It's written right in it.
Sure.
And that has been a big issue with Olmos Park initially.
Something else,
yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah, you know, you have to challenge it in the courts, but, you know, city ordinances can't trump federal law either. And federally, the Fourth Amendment says that, you know, you're safe and secure in your papers, persons, houses, and effects, and all that fun stuff. You know, and the whole city ordinance about having a round in the chamber, they have to open the weapon and clear it, stick their hand in there, and look for the bullet. So that's clearly a Fourth Amendment violation. So it's ridiculous on that, in that aspect as well. Oh
yeah, and that was part of the arguments being used against San Antonio 2 years ago, when Open Carry Texas was challenging them on that ordinance. Now, the ordinance is still on the books, but they have stated we're no longer going to enforce it. But it's still on the books. And who's to say that some police officer further down the line in a couple of years decides, I'm going to go ahead and enforce this non-usable law that's not valid in order to get my way for a search? Kind of
Something I understand about history is that governments and regimes do not give themselves powers they don't intend to use. So there's nothing between, you know, another bully cop using that ordinance to molest somebody going about their legal business, but air an opportunity.
Yeah.
That's the only thing between them is air an opportunity.
Yeah, and so it's a ongoing issue, and even then, here's the funny part. All the people that have been arrested have not been arrested because for that ordinance itself. They've been arrested and charged underneath other charges. So the big question is okay, we just got rid of this ordinance. It does not fix the issue at all. You still have a corrupt police department that's going after people that are open carrying and stuff like that. But, no, go ahead.
Oh, it's really funny where we're talking about AIs and robots censoring the internet. I'm getting another message through Steemit by a robot called Cheetah telling me that this live broadcast is possibly spam or plagiarized from someone else. So it's trying to tell me that I'm plagiarizing my own work right now. It's kind of funny.
Yeah, quite interesting. But as is, it's very it's very telling of the situation. Now, I want to hop in and add some tech advice for the people that are going to be present at tomorrow's Open Carry event. As is, people that have already tried doing live streams over in that area have had some issues with cell connectivity, depending on who your service provider is. Also, depending on how many people are present in that area, you may end up overloading the cell towers where not everybody is able to live stream out of that location. Now, this may change depending on where you're at, specifically within the township or in that surrounding area too, and which cell towers are available, and who's the service providers of those cell towers. I recommend if you're having someone stand by if when you're sort of doing the march, and every now and then checking to see if everybody's live streams is giving out a decent signal and everybody's getting a live feed kind of thing. If not, you may have to change your bandwidth settings if your live stream application allows for it. If you're using something like Streamlabs, you're able to reduce the frame rate and the video quality itself in order to emphasize getting at least an audio out with a horrible picture. Which in a live stream situation, it should be a backup, not your primary. And your backup should always at least get the audio out first. Video and picture are last in priority in that emphasis. Now, for those that are going to be just video recording, that's good. If you're going to record with your cell phone, make sure your phone is password locked, not fingerprint. If you combine fingerprint and password, okay. But if you just use a fingerprint password, you can be compelled to give your fingerprint up in order to unlock that phone. A password is a whole different issue and a whole set of legal matters.
Yeah, I have some quick advice for folks.
Go ahead.
If you're live streaming or just recording with an iPhone, you need to go into your settings or just Google or search YouTube for how to enable something called guided access. Guided access allows you to fix your phone to where once you start recording, the touchpad doesn't engage. They can't move anything. They can't pause it. They can't turn your video off. They can't make the phone stop by pressing the power button. So once you've enabled guided access and you have a live stream or your video recording, the only thing the police can do to stop your recording is break the phone in half. So enable guided access if you're using an iPhone. It's very important.
Yeah, and for some reason DuckDuckGo is not wanting to load up, probably because I'm using so much bandwidth. But yeah, the guided access thing is an important aspect of the iPhone stuff. With Android, there isn't anything like that to my knowledge. Maybe there will be something in the future. But the best thing you can do is use a recording app or a live streaming app or something like that that is allows you to record or live stream with the phone being with the screen turned off and in a locked position. Most Android phones are able to do that with Streamlabs, but I've had issues with my latest phone, so it might not work across the board. Always check your equipment before you go out there and actually do a live stream or record stuff. Make sure your memory cards are working, make sure your camera's recording, make sure your batteries are charged. Always prep your stuff and check it before you go out. That's my little P's and Q's on there. Anything else you want to add, Mike?
No, man. One important thing that I see a lot of people that haven't done a lot of cop watching or a lot of auditing do is they bunch up. They stand together in a group, and you need to spread out. If you want to cover each other and protect each other, you need to, best thing to do is stand all the way across the street from the person you're covering, or at least, 8 or 10 yards away from them. That way, your whole body from at least, you want to cover your partner's body from their calves to the top of their head. You want to be able to shoot all of that video, because that way you're clearly making sure that your actions and your partner's actions are documented. And I've seen that used against people where people are bunched up together and the cops walk really close to you and then they'll put their hands on you because they know that the camera is not going to show the cop pushing on you if you're just holding your camera, shoulder height. But if you spread out, you're just getting more bang for your buck. You're documenting everything in a better way.
Yeah, and I mean, as is, your field of view is very important. Well, the camera's field of view is very important. And when it comes down to it, there's a reason why I purchased a 360 camera. It is to cover as much of the scene as possible that I'm dealing with for an interaction. And it does a really good job of at least covering like the upper portion of my body and all that stuff. And when it comes to like my Springfield arrest, when I'm able to release that footage when I get my hands on it, well, after I get my hands on it, there's going to be a lot of information that you're going to be able to see with just how that went down. Just sort of like when with the San Antonio airport, how you could see a lot more of what's going on that was directly around me, kind of stuff.
There is a couple things I'd like to tell people that might be helpful as well.
Okay.
If you're ever told by a law enforcement officer to step back, best thing to do is to point the camera at your feet and take 2 steps backwards. Then level your camera. If they ever put their hands on you, it's important to aim your camera down, put it on your chest, literally touch the camera to your body, because then you're shooting from all the way down the length of your body, and you'll get the officer's hands on you. I don't know how many times I've seen videos where activists were out there and they were holding their camera, shoulder parallel to the ground and shoulder height, and the cop grabs them, and then they start yelling about, well, I have you on video grabbing me. No, you don't. You don't have them on video grabbing you. And they're going to get away with in court saying, well, there's no proof that the officer touched you. So literally put the camera on your chest and point it downwards if they grab you, if they touch you.
Yeah, well, if they grab you at all, point the camera at that specific moment when that hand touches you.
Right, just below your neck. Just put the camera on your chest and aim it downward. You'll catch their hands on you.
Yeah. But anyway, we might as well go into the next part here that I wanted to cover, and that is dealing with this interesting thing from public radio, local ordinance repeal stir open carry debate in San Antonio. And they have Rick Briscoe from Open Carry, Texas, legislative director, who's being interviewed. And this interview is quite telling. Now, I have to do a little bit of shenanigans with my audio settings and all that stuff, so this way it can be heard, so this way Mike can hear it and all that. But let me get my voice meter set up here. There we go. All right, so what I'm going to have to do is I'm going to hit play on this. You'll hear double speak for a moment, but that I have to have a chance to turn off the mics when this starts playing, at least for my side of things, so this way you guys are not getting it reverberated audio. So here we go.
This is The Source on Texas Public Radio, 89.1 FM. I'm David Martin Davies. This week, city councils in Hollywood Park and Alamo Heights repealed firearm open carry ordinances, which ran contrary to the Texas open carry law. The city of Olmos Park repealed a similar ordinance last week after heated encounters with local law enforcement that led to the arrest of at least 3 gun rights activists. Here's what one of those encounters sounded like.
No, we're not getting on the ground. Get on the ground. We're not getting on the ground.
One more time to get on the ground. I'm not going to tell you again. If you have a license to carry, if you have a license to carry a handgun,
He doesn't need a license to carry a
get back. Get back. Get away from him. You're interfering with the duties right now.
You have no duty to this law-abiding.
More than 250 gun rights advocates are expected to hit the streets of Olmos Park this Saturday in demonstration in support of gun rights. How is the Second Amendment being discussed in our community? How do local issues fit into the nationwide debate on guns? We're joined by Rick Briscoe. He's the legislative director for Open Carry, Texas, and the number to call in is 210-614-8980. Email us at thesource@tpr.org and tweet at us at TPR Source. I do want to note, first off, we got some comments already before we began on our Facebook page and emails to us and tweets. People wondering, here's one from SA Moms, why no opposing viewpoints on the ordinance repeal segment planned for today? As a resident of Alamo Heights and volunteer for Mom's Demand, I think it's only fair to have concerns of community members represented. And another email from Bridge from Olmos Park resident. She says, please have someone presenting the opposing side to this debate on the air. We did reach out to the city of Olmos Park to present someone. The chief of police there did not respond to our invitation. And you are the other side. If you feel compelled, you can give us a call. The number is 210-614-8980. You can join the conversation at any point during this half hour. So again, welcome Mr. Briscoe to the conversation.
Thank you.
So tell me what you guys are planning for Saturday.
In short, we plan a peaceful, lawful assembly to petition the government for redress of grievances. We have coordinated the matter with the county sheriff, the SAPD chief, and the chief in Olmos Park. We are hopeful that there will be no difficulties, that we'll be able to conduct our event, present a petition to the city government, and then go home.
Okay, so when you say you're going to present a petition about your grievances, so it's going to be a march of some sort?
A walk. We'll be walking down the sidewalks where sidewalks are available, and where not available, we'll be walking facing traffic according to Texas traffic code.
And there will be individuals carrying weapons?
We anticipate that there will be some individuals carrying what are generically referred to as long guns, a rifle or shotgun. Others carrying a handgun who will have a license to carry a handgun, and others who may not be armed.
So we're seeing the number 250. Is that what you expect?
We don't really have a hard figure on how many people will attend. We've gotten reports of people who expressed an intent to be here from a couple of different states other than Texas.
So your grievances, what are your grievances?
Well, people have asked, they repealed the ordinance, what more do you want? It's not that the ordinance wasn't involved, but the real problem has been an undisciplined, overly aggressive, increasingly violent police department. There have been a number of incidents prior to the one leading to our president and founder, C.J. Grisham's arrest, where the police exceeded their lawful authority for persons legally going about their daily life. And we simply demand that the city and, if appropriate, other authorities investigate the police department for corrective action.
I've heard that you are demanding the resignation of the Olmos Park Police Chief, Renee Valenciano.
We believe the circumstances exhibited during Mr. Grisham's arrest warrant that. CJ had spoken with the chief literally the day before, in which the chief had acknowledged the right to legally, peacefully open carry or conceal carry handguns, or to open carry long guns without a license. And yet he turned around and he personally was the officer directly involved in the assault and arrest on those two individuals.
So, as we heard within that, specifically, they state that the police chief was directly involved with the actual arrest of C.J. Grisham, and of course also his injuries. Obviously, what do you got to say on that one, Mike?
I think that Open Carry Texas and the other activists that were bullied, intimidated, and threatened, because we know, thanks to News Now Houston, that a woman was threatened with rape. You know, all these people need to hire civil attorneys and civil investigators to go through the emails and the communications of all the people in City Hall, all the law enforcement personnel that talked about this, because if there is documented proof that this police chief actually had the discussion with C.J. Griffin that, you know, it's all right, and he acknowledged that it's okay and perfectly lawful for people to open and conceal carry pistols and long guns, then they're looking at federal conspiracy against rights charges. If they can get documentation of 2 or more people conspiring to deny them of their civil rights, you know, as Desi Arnaz used to say in the old I Love Lucy story show, you know, "Oh, Lucy, you got some spanning to do."
And probably without a doubt, some of them are going to be stupid enough and put it in official records through an email or something like that. And you can probably bet your ass they're probably going to try to hide it and delete that footage and violate public records law and all that other stuff, or at least do destruction of evidence, further implicating themselves. The damage is quite huge against this. I mean, this police department in the city in itself with just what's happened already. And it's going to be interesting to see how much further they dig themselves in this hole before they actually get smart and go, oh, we shouldn't be doing this. Maybe we should go about this in a different way.
And I forgot the young lady's name, but the female that was menaced with the long gun that was arrested, you know, when the officer aimed the gun at her and told her to step back. Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, that's the kind of stuff, literally, that cops have been fired over. You know, aiming weapons at people when they're not doing anything illegal or anything wrong. Cops have been fired over that.
Oh, yeah, without a doubt. And, I mean, well, you had your one incident where the cop pointed a gun at you, and I believe you said that cop was fired, correct? Fired from the police department? Yeah.
Officer Ray Elbers of St. Anne Police Department was pressured out of his job, and he had his state bonding license taken away to be a law enforcement officer. That happened when I was out covering the civil unrest after the Mike Brown shooting and the stuff at Ferguson and all that. But it wasn't just me. He aimed it at myself, a live streamer, the Infowars.com crew, 2 or 3 other corporate news crews as well, because he scanned the whole horizontal plane. And the thing he said was just so ridiculous. He just turned himself into a meme immediately, because he's aiming his long rifle, it's his AR variant, around at various people in the crowd, like just spinning like he's playing a video game looking for a target. And he pauses on this kid. He couldn't be more than like 18. He looked like he's between 17 and 20. This black kid, and says, "Get back or I'll effing kill you." And
Yeah.
and I pan the camera over the kid. I heard that. He just threatened to kill you. And then someone asked the officer, asked Ray Elbers, you know, or Elbies, I can't remember how to pronounce his name, but it's in my channel. You can dig back through it, people. But someone asked him what his name is, and the cop replied by saying, "My name is Go F Yourself." And they're like, "Okay, officer, go F yourself." So if you Google "go F yourself," you know, but spell out the word, you know, fornication without the consent of the king or whatever, you will find all these myriad videos of Elbers threatening to murder someone. So when cops do menace people with weapons, sometimes they do get fired. I was the state's star witness, the state of Missouri, against Elbers in court, and I'm happy. You know, if I were a fighter pilot, you know, that would be my first kill on the side of my airplane. Yeah, I helped get a cop fired, proudly.
Yeah, the true job ender for sure. And I mean, as is, other activists have had not quite as dramatic, but similar instances of catching bad officers in conduct, and that footage and being used to remove that officer from their position. All right, let's go ahead and continue on with this, because it's going to get a little bit more telling once we get into the public Q&A. But there is some very interesting and important questions that gets asked of the person that's being interviewed here.
So, son, you want him to resign or be fired?
We would prefer that he be fired and not wear a badge again.
Now, the video is on YouTube. Anyone can watch the video. And so when I see that video, I see some activists who have these, I don't know what kind of weapons they are. They look like AR-15 type guns, you know, and they have them on their bodies. And the police roll up, and the police tell them to show us your hands. And then it just kind of goes sideways from there. A lot of yelling, a lot of name calling. Thankfully, no one ever pulled a trigger in that encounter.
Well, I'll concur that it's good that the police didn't kill anybody.
Or anyone killed anybody. I mean, I don't want anyone to kill anybody.
But
I mean, everyone had guns.
Okay, so how many of you picked up that, what the interviewer was just doing there? And I think my chat thing just froze up. Mike, you there? Did you pick up on what exactly you just what just happened?
Yeah, but I'm just interested in your interpretation, though.
Okay, I'm gonna restart my chat overlay thing. But what happened there was that he was the subtle implication of the open carry Texas protester that was out there standing with the rifle had the inclination to shoot the officer down that were demanding, well, shoot at the officers that were demanding him to put his hands up and all over the arrest, kind of thing. About how pretty much they're trying to cement the foundation that they might be the ones that would be the ones pulling the trigger, kind of thing.
Yeah, the language was purposely ambiguous, but let's listen to it just one more time. Will you back it up, Bunny?
Yes, I will back this up, and give me a second to mute the mics here, so this way. Have to pull some shenanigans with this. Give me a second here.
Guns, right?
There's no one in danger from...
No one ever pulled a trigger and there, a lot of yelling, a lot of...
Okay, well, let me get this where you guys are not going to hear double speak, and then I'll...
Name calling. Thankfully, no one ever pulled a trigger in that encounter.
Well, I'll concur that it's good that the police didn't kill anybody.
Or anyone killed anybody. I mean, I don't want anyone to kill anybody.
But
I mean, everyone had guns, right?
There was no one in danger from our people.
There you go, Mike.
Okay, so the implication was made, you know, that there could have been some sort of violence from the open carry people. But the videos, if you look at the videos, they clearly demonstrate the police aiming weapons at people, even a woman with a camera, and slapping the camera out of her hand. You know, like, if you were to aim a weapon at a law enforcement officer, you will die in America. That's just reality. You know, if you're holding a weapon and you haven't aimed it at an officer, there's a 99.9% chance that you will die. I have seen dozens and dozens and dozens of videos online of people saying, put the weapon down, and the person didn't even aim the weapon, and the person was killed. Okay, so this implication made by this quote-unquote journalist is just disingenuous. You know, the only people that were threatening to kill anyone were these cops, and that's just beyond refutation. You know, like beyond any refutation of the facts, that this is just the truth. Anybody can see the videos, and that's just crazy.
Yeah, it's very disingenuous that he's implying that the people who are doing the open carry protest are the violent ones. In 99% of the time, the people that are doing open carry protests are peaceful and not openly threatening anybody. 99% of the time. There are those few outliers that will cause problems and do all kinds of bullshit. It's been documented in the past. But for the most part, the people that are doing this, they're going there with a set reason. They're not going to go and screw it up by sitting there and threatening people and pulling their guns and pointing it at everybody.
You know, I have something I have to say. When you read any case, you know, the court transcripts or look at the news stories about any shooting that involves the police, many times people can be killed by police because the person made a furtive movement. And that means a movement that could have been like at their waistline. You know, his arm moved towards his waistline. He could have had a weapon, so I had to protect myself. But on the flip side of that, cops are allowed complete impunity to aim weapons at people. You know, it's crazy making. Something that happened when I was out at Malheur covering the Bundy folks and the militia people, the right-wing folks that took over that bird refuge out in
Bend?
rural Oregon. It was Malheur County. It was
yeah, it's over there by Bend, Oregon, I think is actually the name of the town. It's the closest actual large town near the
well, actually no, it's really small, and I don't remember the name of the town itself. But anywho, like, here's what happened when I was filming Pete Santilli's arrest. This Texas, no, it wasn't Texas. It was there was people there from all over the country. So I get from multi agencies. There's like 28 agencies represented of law enforcement groups. But after Pete was taken into custody, the officer is walking with me back to the SUV I got out of, and he has a tactical flashlight on the end of his AR, and he levels it up at the people's chest inside the vehicle and sweeps side to side. And I'm like, sir, please stop aiming weapons at people. And without skipping a beat, the cop says, I'm not aiming weapons at people. Like, as he's aiming a weapon at, you know, a woman's chest. The crazy screwed up kind of logic that you know, translating pig to English is amazing, and like trying to understand, watching the way their minds work, it's just really creepy.
Yeah. All right. Well, so let's go ahead and continue. It's going to be quite interesting to listen to a response from Open Carry Texas on that.
We were peacefully going about our business. The fact of the matter is the police rolled up, drew weapons, some of which were pointed at Mr. Everhart and Mr. Grisham without provocation, and demanded they get down on the ground. That's not the law. The chief personally knew that C.J. Grisham had a license to carry and was so carrying, and it simply is not an appropriate procedure to draw weapons on an individual and demand they get down on the ground to demean them.
So this made clear. I want to make sure I understand you perfectly clear. So you're saying that if the police see an individual standing on the street corner, dressed in black, maybe wearing, I don't know if it looked like they were wearing body armor, but I don't know if they were, if they weren't.
I'm not able to comment on the specifics because I'm a potential witness.
But if a police roll up on a guy like that and they see that he's carrying a, it's a high-powered weapon, that they just ignore it?
The conduct is legal unless there are other circumstances which warrant their action. It's no more different than a man walking down the street smoking
Pause
a cigar
that,
with a
Bunny,
cell
for a
phone
second.
in his hand.
Back on. Okay, yeah, go ahead. What do you have to say?
Okay, the journalist is being so disingenuous right here. I mean, his there's a lot of other things that a cop can do besides demand that you lay on the ground at gunpoint. He's like, well, if the person's standing on the corner and they're wearing, I'm presuming, body armor and they're dressed in black, they're trying to describe some kind of video game character or something. And they're like, so, and they're carrying a high-powered weapon, should police just ignore it? No, you could, start a conversation. Casual conversation is a stage that law enforcement are in when they're not quite sure what's going on. So go over and say, hey, man, what's going on? I'm just curious, you are armed and I'm wondering what you're doing. There's absolutely that's a big difference, like the journalist just saying, ignoring them or throwing them on the ground. There's a whole lot of other options that could be chosen. And that's just dumb.
Oh, yeah. The thing is there's a lot of legal ways of going about it that are not intrusive or in your face kind of stuff, like what the police over there in Olmos Park have been doing.
Or dehumanizing. I mean, to ask somebody to lay on their face is kind of, worship me. Here are my boots. My boots are dirty, son. I mean, what the hell?
Yeah, I love how 007 is like, disingenuous journalist, imagine my lack of shock. It just shows you how much distrust that'll actually sort of feed well into our next week's show. So, but we'll go ahead and continue on here.
Both are legal activities.
So if the police had seen Devin Patrick Kelly, the individual who shot up the church in Sutherland Springs, just walking down the street just before he shot up that church, they should have just let him go.
Unless there's a great deal more to that story, and I don't wish to delve into that because it's very complex.
Well, there's an officer, he sees a guy with a gun, he doesn't ask him, hey buddy, what's up?
That particular event begins with the United States Air Force not properly performing.
All the law officer knows is there's a guy there with a gun.
Police officer is at liberty to observe. Police officer is at liberty to make a voluntary encounter. I've discussed this with the Sheriff's Association, members of the legislature, and anyone can approach anyone and engage in a conversation. I could walk up to you and strike up a conversation just as a police officer could.
Okay, so they're saying, don't say, hey, you, get on the ground. You want to engage in a conversation and find out what you're up to. That's okay.
Unless the specific circumstances warrant otherwise.
All right, we're going to go to...
Come on, there we go. Okay, now you can hear me. So, quite the interesting first part there, huh? Especially, go ahead, Mike.
I think it was very well articulated. Just reiterating what I said. There's casual conversation, to assess what's going on. Aiming a weapon at somebody is a provocative act. And it's also, let's bear in mind the contradiction here. Leveling a weapon or even just making a movement as if though you may be grabbing for one is legal license under U.S. law for a cop to kill you. you know?
Yeah, and also many states have laws called brandishing, where you hold a weapon in a threatening manner, where it's directed that you plan to intent to cause harm in some form of way, whether it's holding an axe over your head or holding pointing a rifle at someone with your hand with your finger on the trigger. Nonetheless, is going to get you in trouble.
There's all sorts of fun misdemeanors and sometimes felonies. They're either called brandishing or menacing, where you use a weapon with the intent to incite someone into fear. You know, there's also coercion laws in some states, and they actually outright mention that police or public officials are legally bound to not use a weapon to coerce somebody to do something they wouldn't otherwise do. Oregon, under H, if you look at the Oregon revised statutes where we live, Bunny, it says that public officials and cops are legally bound to not coerce people, you know. But I wish the same. I don't know if it's the same thing in the Texas Penal Code, but I doubt it. But
yeah. It's quite telling, and it's going to be quite interesting once we get over to the Q&A section. I've only listened to about 3/4 of all of this, but there is some really interesting stuff.
Well, let's get through the rest of it. Let's go.
Okay, yeah, let's go ahead. So.
Break. We got phone calls here, 980, and Sarah is on the line. Hi, Sarah. Welcome to The Source. You're on the air.
Hi. Thank you so much.
Okay, go ahead.
I'm a resident of Olmos Park and happened to be driving by during the first incident that you guys are discussing, and I had my children in the car, and even my 8-year-old son was able to recognize how scary it was to see people with, you know, unsavory characters at best, open carrying. And I was very comforted to see the Olmos Park police in action, you know, basically containing the situation. I felt much safer. Had there not been a police officer out there, I would have called one. And I fully support the Olmos Park police basically containing this type of, in my opinion, despicable behavior. Stay out of my neighborhood with your open carry message. I don't feel safe, and I've talked to other residents and business owners on McCullough who are hiring off-duty police officers to stand in their businesses. And, you know, I would love to go out and protest against the open carry, but I'm afraid to. And I will keep my children and anybody that I know, like, we're staying away from McCullough.
Sarah, thank you for the call. I appreciate.
And the bootlicking will now begin. I mean, she's like literally like squirreling away herself a pair of blue knee pads in her bedroom. You know, she's probably got it under her bed with, you know, a thin blue line flag. You know, she's probably a family member or a wife of a law enforcement agency agent in the town. I would not. She's probably married to or a sister of a, law enforcement person. If I had to guess, I mean, there are your garden variety bootlickers, but something smelled a little fishy about that phone call. That's all.
It gets worse. It gets worse. Believe me.
Oh, good.
And there's going to be something. Some of you will probably catch it by the third phone call, but I'll make sure to point it out after that.
Well, yeah, and I have to admit to the audience that this is new to me. This isn't scripted. These are my honest, no bullshit opinion about what's going on here. Can't wait to hear the rest of this, Bunny. But yeah, that woman's definitely got some bootlicking issues.
Yeah, but it's quite interesting how she pops in. I'm a local resident. Well, I mean, I can't really take your word for it. I drove by the first incident. Okay, what do you mean the first incident? This kind of investigation has been going on as far back as I think it was December of last year, November or December of last year.
Right.
And there's been many instances. So I think she's probably referring to the first incident involving Open Carry Texas, which made huge news because of who's involved with it. Open Carry Texas is a very large political bloc within Texas, and was instrumental in helping push the changes in the open carry laws over there in Texas. So it begs the question. And of course, unsavory characters, well, they look to me just like normal people out wearing some gear that, clothing that was for the environment, cold environment. They looked to be a little bit of a chilly that day.
They don't look like, some, white jihadists like you. They don't have the big beard, and they're not walking around in the, the Muslim clothes that you do sometimes when you're doing your audits. And they're not like a punk rock looking freak like me. They're not like a guy with a foot-long dreaded blue mohawk. I mean, these are average Joe looking people, your average Dick and Jane looking folks. They look like every other Texan.
Yeah, it's quite interesting. But let's go ahead and listen to his response to this and then get started on the next question.
Appreciate that. So let me get to one point that she made. She made a lot of good ones, but let me focus on this one. Should people like Sarah call the police if they see someone walking down the street open carrying?
Whether they should or not is a different question of whether they may. Should they so choose, the police may respond, observe, and report back to dispatch what they observed. We went through this in January, actually before January of 2016, during the transition to the licensed open carry law for handguns. And the answer is that if the police observe an individual who is not doing anything that is a violation of the law, they may observe if they so wish or go about their business. Law enforcement has real business to do. There are approximately 2 commissioned peace officers per 1,000 population across the state. Obviously, the exact number varies from one jurisdiction to the next. And they've got real work to do against real bad guys. If they observe a man walking down the street smoking a cigar with a gun on his hip and nothing more, that's not against the law. Many of the sheriffs with whom I spoke at a convention that year indicated that unless there was something
Bunny,
else
will you pause that for a second?
Would cause them to stop or quit.
That is incredible to me. Okay, only 2 law enforcement officers per 1,000 people in Texas. Okay, I want people to think about that for a second. The government is literally at the will of the people. If they had 1,000 people sit down in any major city in Texas, and demand cookies and ice cream, Haagen-Dazs, not any of that vanilla stuff, they could get whatever they wanted. Like, it's amazing. Just that ratio of law enforcement to people, and it says a lot about people's good natures, that society, and it also says about the way that our psychology works as a society, that we're still held together, and we allow the state and the government to intimidate and coerce us is amazing. That ratio, it's just crazy and mind-boggling to think about. But go ahead, Bunny. I just had to put that out there.
Okay. Oh.
Question that individual, they expect their deputy to get on his way to real work.
Okay, got some other callers. This is Becca. Becca, welcome to The Source. You're on the air.
Hi, thank you for taking my call. I want to say that I'm a volunteer for Moms Demand Action for Gun Sense in America. It's a gun violence prevention group. And that unlike most, if not all of these gun extremists, I actually live in Alamo Heights. My child goes to school in the Alamo Heights School District. We shop at local businesses in Olmos Park in Alamo Heights. And I support the Second Amendment. But if I see someone open carrying a military-style rifle, I automatically think there's a threat. And I don't want to have to do a threat assessment when I'm running errands. And I really don't want my child to have to. But for me, the issue here goes beyond the debate of preeminence and municipal rights. And the fact is that open carry is a dangerous policy that a majority of the public and law enforcement opposes. When you combine the fact that private sales or the gifting of firearms without a background check is legal in Texas and that the open carry of long arms is unlicensed, we have no way of knowing if the person open carrying a loaded rifle or long gun in public has undergone a background check. And so really, stunts like the forced education demonstration, all they do is they scare the community. They're bad for local businesses, and they create a burden on law enforcement. And our state lawmakers really need to address this issue.
Okay, Becca, thank you for the call.
Oh, so much wrong with that, in a way.
Well, I think it's honest of her to say that she's with a Reformation of Gun Laws organization, a left-wing group, and she's, at least she's not like the other lady. The other lady, I full on believe that she's probably working with or married to somebody in law enforcement, but at least this lady had the intellectual honesty to say that this is her agenda,
Yeah.
And I respect that.
Yeah, I mean, that's the good part about that. But, I mean, the thing is like, to do a threat assessment, well, guess what? These people, people that aren't open carrying and stuff that are concealed carry, there's people out there that are concealed carrying illegally every day. You don't even realize it. Because they don't whip out their weapons and stuff like that. And for the most part, they're doing you a favor. Okay, that guy's got a rifle. Okay, so there you go. You're aware of it. You have a better awareness of the situation around you versus when people are concealed carrying, in which case you don't even know. Now, it's not of threat assessment at that point. It becomes of, okay, I know you're being open about with your walking around with your rifle. I know you're armed. Okay. That just makes you more aware of the situation. For me, this is more, I don't want to feel like I'm under constant assault. I don't want to feel like I have to deal with all these people walking around with weapons when there's people probably walking around you all the time with weapons that are concealed and possibly legal who can't legally carry in the first place.
A lot of things come to mind, but I do want to say this. Okay. It's not incumbent on law enforcement to protect you, dear citizens. There's, a handful of Supreme Court decisions that you can show from all around the country that people have complained, oh, the police didn't help me, or they didn't get there in time, or they let my cousin or my sister or my wife get killed. Well, here's the thing. Police have immunity from any legal responsibility of defending human life. So if a cop doesn't help you, and there's only, 2 cops for every 1,000 Texans, wrap your brains around this, Texans. Okay, your self-defense ultimately is in your hands. All this BS in our culture about we're safe because cops put their lives on the line every day to defend us is complete and utter. Well, the words, the combination word starts with a B and ends with an S. It's incredible to me. It's incredible. I mean, look, if a cop, if a cop doesn't show up and someone mugs me on the street and then I call the cops afterwards, the cop can't miracle money back in my pocket and they can't wave their badge in the air and somehow make the lump on my head diminish. I mean, you people need to, leave Fantasyland. The Magic Kingdom. Tinkerbell and little elves aren't real. The Easter Bunny isn't real. Santa, Santa's not going to go down your chimney and kick burglars out of your house either. I mean, these people are completely delusional.
Yeah. Well, you're going to like my response to this question here that she had to say. No, well, with her statement there.
Can't wait.
She's going on about the rifle part. How many times have we heard sort of similar with cameras? With people openly recording in public? Especially when, maybe there's kids around and stuff like that. I don't know what you're going to be doing with that video footage. I don't want you recording me, blah, 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 blah. This same kind of argument has also been applied to other issues within civil rights. Specifically with video cameras. Especially if you're recording where maybe there possibly will be kids present, or maybe there just happens to be a gaggle of kids nearby. Or what if you're at a park or something like that recording your own kids or whatever, yeah.
Absolutely, Bunny. And, you know, I think it's really funny. I think it's really funny that your average American thinks it's perfectly okay for the government to spy on them. It's perfectly okay for big corporations to spy on them. It's perfectly okay for the FBI's program Carnivore to read through everyone's emails and flag everything according to keywords. It's perfectly okay for the fine print in your Facebook and all your other social medias that states that they will forward information that seems suspect to the federal authorities. You're perfectly all right with that. But if another citizen happens to have a video camera in some area that your quote-unquote protectors, you know, work in, then all of a sudden you're offended, you're upset, you're complaining. I think it's willfully ignorance that or it's willful ignorance on a scale that's almost hard to comprehend. That yes, when Bunny was most arrested recently, there was the implication made by the cops that there's kids around. You know,
I was filming school kids and all that stuff, which still is perfectly legal to do in all 50 states. But yeah, continue with your argument.
Sure. My argument is simply this. It's okay in most people's minds that government surveil their children. You know, there's some schools with cameras, you know, all throughout the whole schools, and everybody's great with it. Well, here's the thing. If you look at the statistics of kids in government care, you're like dozens of times more likely to be molested, you know, raped as a child in the foster care system than in any other kind of living environment. You know, so perverts that are part of government are literally molesting more of your children than any other demographic. And that is pretty freaking disturbing. And if you think about the potential for cops to be able to get away with rape, okay, it's not illegal for cops to have sex with people in custody in more than 38 or 35 U.S. states. So all they have to say to get away with rape is, oh, well, you know, he or she, you know, said that we could have sex. You know, that constant coercion of the cop being able to say, hey, you know, I'll let you out of the handcuffs, and that bag of dope I found in your backpack, you know, will disappear if you blow me. You know, the potential for state actors to commit rape and the amount of, you know, children that are molested in the foster care system, government allowing this to happen, it beggars belief that people don't connect the dots and they don't see these things.
Yeah. All right, let's go ahead and continue on.
So, Rick Briscoe, Legislative Director for Open Carry, Texas. How do I tell a good guy from a gun from a bad guy, good guy from bad guy with a gun?
It's really quite simple. Conduct. Police officers.
So just ask them? Ask them?
No, conduct. Police officers and legislators have asked that question frequently. If a police officer arrives on the scene of a shooting incident, how are they supposed to tell whether a man with a gun is a good guy or a bad guy? Well, if the police officer instructs or shouts, put the gun down, the good guy will. The bad guy,
they did that in Olmos Park, and the guys did not comply.
I said at a shooting.
So you have to wait till the lead flies and the blood flows.
No, I'm talking about.
Wow, what a creepo.
Why are people not... well, in a way, it sort of does make importance on things that probably need to be stated for people that are probably that dense. But as is...
I got a question for you, Bunny.
Go ahead.
If a cop is aiming a long gun at you and you have, you know, a sidearm or a weapon holstered, you know, or slung over your shoulders, and the cop says, put the gun down, are you going to put your hand on your weapon to put the gun down?
Hell no! Because as soon as my hand touches that gun, it could go bang, bang, lights out for me, or at least I'm in the hospital, depending on what the hell I'm wearing at that time. But yeah, no, I'm not going to put my freaking hand on the weapon. It's no, I'm going to keep my hands up. You tell your partner to come over here and disarm me. I'm not touching the damn thing.
Yeah, I mean, I think the safest thing to do, you know, is interlace your fingers together and put them on the top of your head and slowly go down onto your knees and very slowly pivot and turn away from the cops and say, no, here, I'm going to put my ankles across from each other so that you can have a nice felony arrest. And like, you know, I'm safe, you're safe, come and arrest me, you know, but I'm not risking my life. I mean, seriously, like there's so many videos I've seen online about cops just say, drop the weapon. And they don't even give them 2 seconds, you know, and the person's not even facing the cop and the cop just blast on them. I mean, that's just ridiculous.
I think it's been almost 6 years, but there was a really famous video several years ago where a guy, he was open carrying, had his rifle, his handgun holstered to his side, and he was secretly recording with his wristwatch, with a watch camera, him retrieving items from the police department. He was afraid the police were going to kill him. And what happens? The police go ahead and shoot him. After getting in a verbal exchange, he's like, here, I'm here to get to my documents, and they tell him, oh, he needs to get rid of his weapon or whatever. Now, it's uncertain if he reached for it or whatnot, because there's no other video footage than what comes from the watch camera.
I don't remember that guy's name, but Gavin Syme has some very good video and commentary about that on his YouTube channel.
Yeah, and he ended up in... he survived, thank goodness. And surprisingly, he ends up getting... I think he got convicted. I don't know what's the full status, if he managed to appeal it or whatnot. But yeah, I mean, you don't even have to reach for your weapon for these cops to automatically just shoot you if they don't like you, and then try to make up lies afterwards.
Yeah, the great thing about this is the videos I saw, especially the one where CJ was arrested, they had really great coverage. The activists they had there covering them were doing what I said. You don't bunch up and you stand a few paces at the minimum away from each other, and you'll get really great documentation.
Yeah, and the thing is even if, let's say, you don't get audio, well, guess what? If there's a camera right directly on the person, they have the audio. And if you do like what I do, you just go and pull the audio from the other angle, line it up with your footage, and there you go. You got the audio you can easily put into it. So it's not that hard to deal with the whole audio aspect if you're able to get the other angle, at least get the recording from the other angle, and then match it into your footage. So this way you can have both context in play.
Hey, Bunny.
Yes.
You know what we should do, not Wednesday, but next Friday, is we should do a tactic. Filming tips for documenting law enforcement. We could both impart a lot of stuff. I think we should devote part of that show to that conversation.
Okay. Well, yeah, we'll have to line up more for that. But also the other reason why I sort of paused it there was let the bullets fly before the police do anything. No, you don't have to let the bullets fly. The thing is its conduct is the big issue. And the person's conduct is going to really tell on what you're going to do. If they're just minding their own business, looking at their cell phone, the gun's like just dangling there, they don't have their hands on it and all that stuff, they're not using it in a threatening manner, yelling at people and stuff like that, guess what? They're not breaking any laws, so there's nothing to really worry about. You just observe them until maybe there's something that changes, or you observe them until they leave. Observation is the key part for these kinds of situations. If you can't tell what the hell's going on, you just sit there and watch.
The myth of the social contract that government is supposed to have with the people, the reason why I say it's myth is because it's made a moot point. You know, case in point, what happened to these open carry folks, okay, is that your right to carry, and bear arms means carry them, literally. It literally means hold and carry. You know, that's what bear means. It means you pick it up and you carry it. Okay, shall not be infringed. You know, there's a comment. It says shall not be infringed. I'm pretty sure holding someone at gunpoint and ordering him to lay on their face and putting them in a cage and threatening women with rape and slapping cameras out of their hands while they're trying to document their bearing of their arms is an infringement. I mean, maybe I'm crazy here. Maybe I'm just some of a, gun enthusiast and I'm interpreting law the way I want it. But, like, maybe I think that counts as infringement.
Yeah. All right, let's go ahead and continue on with this.
when an officer arrives at an event where there has been a shooting.
Okay.
When there has been no shooting, there is no degree of immediacy. The manner in which the firearm is carried determines the circumstance. In the instance in Olmos Park, it was lawfully carried on the person of the individuals involved, and there was no cause for alarm. The lady who just called in, most of what she had to say is not factually correct. The public does support the Second Amendment, unlike the Mothers Demand Action crowd who, when they call into shows like this, will say, I support the Second Amendment, but if you check their official policies, they're out to either repeal the Second Amendment or take away your guns, period. They have taken such positions in the legislature. And insofar as shootings go, the majority of shooting deaths are actually suicides. And when you start breaking down the statistics...
Okay, that doesn't jive with the key statistics that have been provided by the FBI that most shooting deaths are from suicides. Let me go to another caller. This is Adriana. Adriana, welcome to...
That's factually inaccurate as all hell. What the guy just said.
The reporter?
Yeah.
Yeah. It doesn't jive. No, it actually does jive. A majority of gun deaths in the United States are from suicides.
Yep.
And they just get incorporated in the gun crime thing because suicide's a crime in a good portion of the United States.
And something else that's disingenuous as all hell is a lot of these gun organizations will count any time that a firearm is discharged as a shooting. Like, somebody could accidentally fire a gun on a school campus, and they'll just lump that into school shootings.
Yeah, even though it was done by, like, a police officer.
Yeah, or just some guy, you know. Some people have committed suicide. This has happened, you know, in school parking lots, schools that were closed, not during school hours, and anti-gun activists will throw that in a news piece and say another school shooting, you know.
Yeah, wow. In fact, actually, with the Parkland thing, there was a lot of misinformation going on. I think it was like we had 17 school shootings this year. Well, the thing is the shootings that they're all counting was either gang violence that was on the street where the school's at, or it may have been a suicide in the school parking lot, or it may have been a suicide nearby where the bullet, where it was just a high enough power bullet or something like that, where it actually hit the building, kind of thing.
Yeah.
There's been many instances where they misappropriate the numbers, and people,
I mean,
go ahead.
If these mothers really cared about children dying, they would spend a little bit of that money they spend on trying to disarm folks and start distributing flyers or memes about telling your kids to chew your food, because more kids are killed by hot dogs because they didn't chew their freaking hot dogs every year than all the gun crime combined. Like, it's ridiculous. I mean, you know, if you want your kids to be safe, you could prevent more deaths than if you could, you know, somehow magically remove all the guns by teaching your kids to chew their hot dogs. I mean, chew your food, Timmy. Chew your food, Jane. You know, you don't want to die.
Yeah, and for the person in my chat that asked about the open carry of full automatic weapon or light machine guns, you need, in order to legally own a machine gun that is made before, I think it was 1983 or something like that, you have to have a Class 3 license, which requires you to have a certain kind of safe in your house or place of business, and you have to go through a more stringent federal background check by the ATF, and it's a costly thing. And that's just to get licensed to be able to own. Those things are not cheap unless you end up, even if you make your own. And for those of weapons that were made before the act was in place, they easily go for above $200,000, if not $300,000. Just the FYI on that aspect. Let's see. They don't just use guns to commit suicide. Most of them are using drugs to commit suicide more in this day and time. That is very true. More people are well, quite a few people, if they don't have access to guns, they'll look to other means to kill themselves, whether it be drugs, trying to drown themselves, hang themselves, and stuff like that. There's many aspects, but it's just guns technically are a little bit easier, and you just pull the trigger and no chance for regret in many situations.
Let's ban tactical assault hammers. Any hammer with a quick draw, like, you know, groove for ergonomic control, any hammer that's got a rubberized grip, that scary rubberized grip, let's ban those.
Yeah. Anyway, well, let's go ahead and continue on here.
To the source, you're on the air.
Hi. I personally have my CHL, and I'm just curious as to what the point is to open carry besides intimidation, because it makes no sense to me. If you have your CHL, if you can carry a concealed weapon, what's the point of carrying a long gun, a rifle, an AR-15, whatever it is, besides intimidating the people you're walking around, or, you know, that are in the neighborhood that are you?
Okay. All right, Adriana, go ahead.
Okay, there we go. Unmuted. So what do you think, Mike, of that question? Must have muted himself.
I think simply this, Bunny. The point is to normalize it. The point is so that when people do exercise that right, that they're not threatened with murder and caging. They don't have a man aiming long rifles at them and telling them to lay on their face, and they're not put in cages. That's the point, lady. You know, the whole point of making it legal to keep and bear arms is the fact that people may need it to defend themselves against tyrannical government or muggers or home invaders or rapists. You know, insert criminal scumbag here, because man is a bad animal. There's an instinct to dominate that we have that's part of our, you know, genetic heritage. It's integral to the human condition. Therefore, it needs to be allowed for people to use whatever tools they deem fit to defend themselves. That's the point, lady, to normalize being able to defend yourself. You know, the gun is the great equalizer. I bet no woman that's aimed a gun at a rapist, and I doubt the rape ever happened, you know, and if it did, it's because she didn't have the will to pull the trigger. But if she had the intent to keep the rapist from killing her, I'm sure that she would, or killing and raping her, I'm sure she would have pulled the trigger. That's the point, lady. The point is to normalize it so that people can use a weapon to defend themselves without worry of government putting them in a cage or possibly murdering them.
Yeah, and the thing is as is with the thing, it's the exercise of a civil right. It's just like with, why do you, back to, okay, let's change it from firearms to cameras. Why do you need to openly record everything? Everything's already being recorded by the government. All that stuff. It's just like, yo, you have a civil right to do it. It's to normalize the use of the camera so people don't get hemmed up by openly recording police interactions or just generally recording in public. It's quite, I mean, 10 years ago, people were always having issues of recording in public areas, people freaking out. It's gotten a lot better with the prevalence of cell phones with cameras being constantly out there. And so people are not freaking out going, oh, you can't be doing that, or I can't be, you can't record me, blah, blah, blah. I mean, that has changed dramatic. I mean, those kinds of issues have dropped dramatically in the past 10 years with the prevalence of the open carrying of a camera on your cell phone.
Here's one for you, Bunny. Here's the idea. Okay, what's the point of a cop open carrying a weapon if not to just intimidate people that happen to see them? I mean, cops can legally have sex with people in custody in 30 states. So you have this person, you know, that kid could get away with rape just by simply saying, hey, she wanted me to have sex with her while she was handcuffed in the car. I mean, really, I mean, that's her idea of kink, you know? Like, so what's the point of cops open carrying weapons if not to intimidate? You know, let's reverse the logic on this lady. And I would love to see her face if I asked her that question.
Yeah. It's quite interesting. Let's go ahead and get you on. It looks like this might take a majority of our show here, so but it's a good one.
So be it. I mean, we can talk about internet trolling some other time.
Rick, go ahead.
She illustrates the problem that Texans have not experienced a variety of items, such as the open carry of handguns during the lifetime of any living Texan until January 1st of 2016, unless they've lived out of state where it was legal to do so. The laws which restricted the carry of handguns in general were passed post-Civil War with the specific intent to be enforced on a racially discriminatory basis. They were intended to keep the former slaves, the freedmen, tied to the land they formerly had worked as slaves. You may recall the release of papers from Rosa Parks about her grandfather sitting up at night with a shotgun to protect the family against night raiders.
So I want to go back to one thing you said, is want to get the statistics correct. You talked about suicides, deaths from suicides, and I was looking at numbers from of 1 year on average of ages between 0 and 19. There was 1,600 are murdered and 958 died from suicide. But we look at all ages, we have 12,243 were murdered and 21,637 died from suicide. So there's a lot who die from suicide that's out there, but having guns available.
Well, let's talk rather than about 1 year, about many years. Suicides, whatever the number may be, are a significant factor, and let's exclude them because they're not really a crime against someone else.
All right.
Included in those statistics are, for example, the Zarnav brother who was shot by police, one of the Boston bombers. Justified police shootings are included in those statistics. And when you break them out, you'll also notice a trend that the areas with some of the strictest gun control laws are the areas with the most violence, such as Chicago.
Yeah, but Chicago is seeing the lowest murder rate they have had since the 1960s. They're seeing a lot of and one of the arguments that the pro-second rights amendments have is that more guns creates a civil society, and so how does that jive?
The question is, if strict gun control doesn't limit violence, as it does not in Chicago, guns aren't the problem. The people who commit the acts are.
Okay.
A gun is an inanimate object. There are more people killed with
inanimate object
hammers.
that kills people. So let me go to John. Hey, John, welcome to The Source. You're on the air.
Yes, Bunny, can you pause it for a second? I love it how this liberal dickbag, quote, journalist, sidestepped the fact that some of the most early manifestations of gun control laws in the United States was to keep guns out of the hands of former slaves. And that's the truth. But he sidestepped it by throwing in the guiding the conversation away from what the man was talking about. Rosa Parks talking about her grandfather, sitting on their porch with a weapon to protect them from night raiders. But yeah, if you look at some of the earliest anti-gun legislation, it came from trying to keep guns out of the hands of those scary black people. But liberals don't want to have any of that conversation.
Yeah, also, I just want to point out, if you notice those first three callers there, did anybody notice what gender they were? Just wanted to point that out. So, I mean, and specifically also, what was their main argument? It seemed to be about fear itself, the fear of the firearm. Oh, well, the general fear of the threat. Very telling of what the kind of argument they're trying to go for the discussion and debate, for the most part, is they're trying to apply emotion to where there's actually a decent logical answer for a lot of stuff, but they don't want to hear that logical answer. And when there is logical answers to some of their questions, they all of a sudden want to sidestep it or put their hands over their ears and go, la 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 la, doesn't apply. I mean, remember, with the whole suicide thing, when he first pointed it out, there's more suicides than actual people killing others with guns. And of course, the reporter had to sort of backtrack on that, if you just noticed.
You know, there's something else I want to point out, is that the FBI don't do a really great job, and no government entity does a really great job of gathering data about gun violence. And like, for instance, the FBI report that everybody seems to tries to parse out and then politicize to their perspective, whether it's pro-gun or anti-gun, it's based on a law enforcement voluntarily giving the information to the FBI. So it's a voluntary system to report that gun violence, meaning that it is flawed. It is horribly flawed, and there's no real federal or state gun statistics. These are all, you know, it's very unscientific. It doesn't do any kind of real statistical analysis, but they still argue with it like it's a fact. You would think that the IRS doesn't have a problem with counting every time you grunt or fart, or how many miles it takes you to drive back and forth to work. You would think that the government, you know, since this issue is so important, that they would, you know, come up and actually spend the time and effort and money it takes to gather these statistics. But I don't think that is within the agenda of the federal system, because they want to maintain control and dominance and the myth of the police being justified in their actions. And I really believe that if there were decent statistics, the overwhelming amount of gun violence in America would be perpetrated by law enforcement personnel.
That's a good possibility, especially with the amount of people that are killed each year by law enforcement, whether justified or unjustified.
But yeah, but that's a big if. A lot of the police accountability activists like Bunny and myself, dear listeners, we go by reports in the media. You know, there's certain websites that collate the law enforcement shootings and the violent statistics in the media that try to do a decent picture of it. But we really don't know. I mean, I think since government robs everyone of approximately a third of their wages, at the very least, they should be keeping this data on hand for us to analyze.
Yeah, NJ Diver actually put a link into it into my chat about a half hour ago, I think, specifically talking about that, the amount of people dying from police shootings. But let's go ahead and continue on. We're almost done with this, and it's actually pretty much at the end of the show too. So
perfect.
Criminal justice major at UTSA. I mean, if I was driving down McCullough, see these guys with what appears to be AR-15, I don't know the difference between the gun and, oh, well, the guy's walking down the street with a cigar, gun on his hip. I don't know the difference between an AR-15 with a bump stock and not. So, I mean, I'm going to call the cop. I'm going to ask them to do something. If his friends were sitting there and not abiding by what the cops are telling them to do, yeah, I'm going to tell them to get on the floor and put their guns away and things like that. I mean, what's the difference?
Okay, I'm going to go to another caller because I got a lot of calls. Rob, welcome to the source.
Should we comment on that one, or because I think we already answered that?
Just stock bootlicking. You know, it's more of the, you know, denying someone of their rights because the gun scares me kind of thing. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, exactly. The gun scares me. I'm uneducated in the matter. Maybe you should educate yourself. You have the internet available to you. You can do the research. There's a public library in every single town. I'm pretty sure there's a public library there. Yeah, go ahead.
Full disclosure, I'm more of a expert in people's civil rights. Okay, that's what I've concentrated on. I'm no gun expert. I mean, the majority of my knowledge of guns, except from when I was a child, you know, when I was 12, 13 years old, I was shooting squirrels and crap like that, because that's what all little rural boys did. But, you know, there's a video online with more than, I think it's close to 3 million views, and I'm referring to a magazine and a gun as a clip. It's because the most conversations I've had about guns are out of video games. But I mean, I understand that these people have a right to carry them, and I understand the statistics and all that fun stuff. But like, so I'm not trying to be Mr. Know-It-All here. You know, so I made a new mistake that a lot of gun fanatics, or just people that are enthusiasts of guns, would laugh at. You know, and 3 million people have seen it. You know, I just have to throw that out there for the sake of my own, you know, integrity.
Yeah. All right. So let's go ahead and continue.
Of course, you're on the air.
Yeah, thank you. I always hear this argument, and it starts with one side saying, hey, we're tired of our kids being killed in school, and it's met with, we can't do anything because of the Second Amendment. We have restrictions on firearms that comply with the Second Amendment, so not everything is going to directly conflict with it. Limiting firearms or limiting the severity of firearms, like whether or not you can have a powerful rifle versus a bolt-action rifle, seems like it should be an argument that's not constitutional or Second Amendment in nature, but how can we protect our society, reduce the number of guns that cause bigger problems, but also keep firearm ownership legal, just restricted on what you can own.
All right, Rob, so thank you for the call. So
I got to jump in here for a second, Bunny. Okay, when I was 12 years old, my dad gave me a German Mauser. It's a replica. It shoots six shots, 6 shots in the magazine, and it, if memory serves, it's bolt action, you know, and it shoots a bullet the size of a 30-06, and there's a whole lot of powder behind it. So it's super high velocity. It's a bolt action rifle, you know, and I would shoot like a refrigerator with it, you know, and it will knock the crap out of the refrigerator, you know. Somebody would shoot 223 rounds at it, you know, when I was a kid, and the refrigerator just barely moved. You know, there's a lot of bolt action weapons out there that will shoot a round that will go through 3 or 4 or 5 walls, you know. So this guy's just being kind of ignorant, you know. Like the AR-15, it's not a super high velocity round. It can shoot a lot of bullets. I mean, you can have high capacity magazines, but it's not really a super fast bullet.
Well, actually,
or one that has a lot of kinetic energy. It's not very heavy.
Yeah, the thing is actually the 223 and the 5.56. They're the same size but different powder cartridges. Just keep that in mind.
Okay.
Now, these rounds are essentially just a amped up version of a 22, which they just travel faster. And the 5.56 has more powder than the 223. Now, the reason why the military uses 5.56 is not because it will kill you, it's because it will injure you very effectively. And that causes issues for the thing. And so using a 223 or 5.56 actually greatly increases your chance of living from being shot.
Well, don't those bullets, I've read about ballistics and I've watched a lot of videos with ballistics gels. Those kind of, you know, really fast moving small bullets, they tumble. They'll kind of move around in your body in kind of weird directions, right, Bunny?
That's only if they actually are able to slow down enough and let's say they manage to penetrate the chest and they get slowed down enough to where when it reaches the back of your rib cage, it's able to actually hit the back rib bone there and get bounced around. That can happen.
That's icky. That's really gross, man.
But that depends on the range. If I shoot someone like that at, let's say, 50 feet in front of me, the bullet's going to go through them. It's going to have an entrance and exit. And the thing is with those 2 rounds, they're not designed to tumble in the air. That reduces accuracy. These rounds are meant for long range, like hunting and stuff like that. And so you can do a full football field with a 223 or 5.56, and it's going to generally leave a fairly clean, at least entry wound. It's not going to shrapnelize unless you're using a soft point kind of thing. Or a hollow point, which you don't have with rifle rounds. There's no hollow point. These are jacketed rounds that are meant to go a long distance and enter something and hopefully kill it if you have the right shot. If not, it's just going to do one hell of a maiming shot. And if you live in an area where you can get medical treatment within about 30 minutes, at least with the paramedics or fast responder kind of thing, your odds of surviving, as long as it's not hitting a vital organ or hitting a vital part of the body, is immensely high. Now, when it comes to something like a 308 or a 308 round or something like that, these higher power rounds from like the World War I or World War II early rifles and stuff like that, that are bolt action or semi-automatic that fire a larger round, the odds of death go up a lot higher because they cause a lot more damage, because the round itself that enters the body is much bigger, there's more kinetic impact and all that stuff. That's also the reason why the AK-47 will usually does a little bit more damage when it hits the body versus an M4 style, anything that fires a 223 or a 5.56.
That's what I was remembering from when I was a kid, because when I would shoot a refrigerator box, you know, or a refrigerator, not the cardboard box, propped up in the woods, the Mauser would just knock the crap out of it, and it would actually move the box a little bit. And when someone would shoot at it with like a Mini 14, it just wouldn't do much movement at all. You know, it's like I would much rather prefer, if I was hunting, you know, or wanting to kill something, a round that was bigger, traveling slower, because it does expend more kinetic energy when it moves through the body. Like that, you know, that's just my thoughts about the matter from my own experiences as a kid.
Yeah, I mean, this is also my experience from firing these kinds of rounds, because I do own an AK-47. I do have a rifle that fires 5.56 and 223. If you have something that fires a 5.56, I'll be able to fire a 223. I've expended both rounds, type of rounds through it, and I know the power difference. I know what it does to a target. And as is, if you can get medical treatment right away, I mean within a decent time span, you have an increased chance of survivability as long as it doesn't hit a vital organ. And in most cases with these shootings, these people are not walking around aiming for kill shots. They're just walking around and pulling the trigger at center mass. And I mean, it will probably take you down, but do you have a decent chance of surviving if it's hitting non-vital organs and you can get proper treatment. You play dead while you're wounded, try to pretend that you're knocked out or whatever after you get hit, is the best you can do in those kinds of situations.
You know, I'm a camera geek, honestly. Yeah. I would much, if somebody handed me $5,000 right now, I would buy myself a Steiner Optics Spear, SPIR, which is like a military Overwatch and sniper infrared illuminator, some NVGs, and a decent camera with a IR filter. That's what I would do. I would buy military optics gear and buy a camera and marry them together.
Yeah, the thing is I mean, as is, I haven't really seen many shootings where people are going around and deliberately trying to just kill every single person, confirm kill kind of thing. No, they're just walking around and shooting. I mean, a good example is last year's with the Las Vegas shooting. All the guy was doing was literally bump stocking the shots, or either the shotgun had a bump stock or he just knew how to fire it properly, where it acted like it had a bump stock.
Yeah,
and he wasn't firing for accuracy. He was firing just to shoot rounds into a crowd.
I think he was trying to maximize his kill count with his little amount of effort. I mean, just my thoughts on the matter. But it's hard to tell what a crazy person is thinking.
Oh yeah,
and these people are nut burgers.
Well, over there in Austin, Texas, the famous the tower shooting, when the one guy was sitting there shooting, this guy was using a bolt action rifle to kill people, and he killed over 30 people, I think it was. I can't remember the exact number, and that guy was a former Marine and stuff like that. As is, if someone really wants to kill a lot of people, it's doable, but especially just with a bolt action rifle. If you put me up in an area with like a bolt action rifle, I could probably shoot and kill several people. They're even trying to duck and hide behind cover, because I also know how to use sound trajectory to screw with people. I know a little bit about science and all that stuff. If you put your mind to it, it can happen. But obviously, I'm not of the person that's going to go out and do that kind of shit. But I'm just saying the potential to do this kind of stuff and be way worse at it is out there, but we have yet to see someone really do it. And it shows on the emphasize that we have a lot of good people out there.
But you know, the thing I fantasize the most about shooting is a camera. You know, I'm way more interested in getting the good video shots. You know, I would love it if I could, you know, just afford some of the camera gear that I fantasize. You know.
Yeah, let's go ahead and finish this up so we can end the show, man. So I know you got caught watching tonight.
I do.
Opposing the Second Amendment, the same thing as saying we need to just, take a look at it?
What's the difference in opposing free speech?
Well, there are restrictions on free speech as well. You can't yell fire in a crowded theater.
Well,
Why do you make the stupidest arguments? You can yell fire in a crowded theater if there's a fire. You can't yell fire to try to create a panic situation that would lead to injury. There's a difference between the two. It is the most misquoted and misused acronym when it comes to freedom of speech. You're crying out loud, get the context right. Do you have anything to add to that before I hit play again?
No, it's just typical. Just typical BS, man. Let's go ahead and listen to the rest.
You can't do a variety of things with firearms either. There are more firearms laws than we can count. The problem is the people who are engaged in these acts. There's been a lack of emphasis on mental health care. If you observe most of these mass shootings, they are almost always an individual with mental health issues
then
and on psychotropic medication.
On February 28th, 2017, Donald Trump signed a measure nixing regulations aimed at keeping guns out of the hands of some mentally ill people. Should he have signed that?
There is an issue with that to the extent that it scoops up people who are not actually a problem. As far as people who do have serious mental health issues, it's appropriate.
Did Nicholas Cruz have enough mental health issues that should
Pause it for a
prevent him
sec.
from having a weapon?
The vast majority of people that have mental illness are nonviolent. And this is, there are really good medical statistics, and that's all I have to say. They're not a threat to themselves or anyone else. People that have anxiety, you don't have to worry about them killing someone. People that have depression, you don't have to worry about them murdering somebody. People that, have a phobia of people, like agoraphobics, shouldn't have their gun rights stolen away from them. And that's the problem with a lot of these, if they're mentally ill, we have to take their weapons kind of laws, is they just blanket try to deny people of their rights. And that's all I wanted to say there, Bunny.
And I just want to add to this kind of stuff, these kinds of things is actually what scares people away from getting treatment or attempt to get treatment for their mental health issues, is like all of a sudden my rights might be violated, or there could be it could lead to further justifications where their rights get violated and involuntary incarcerations and stuff like that. There's some legitimate fears that these people have that do suffer from mental illnesses that don't want to come forward.
Yeah,
and go ahead.
Some of these laws, the way they're written and the way that they try to take the guns away from the, quote, mentally ill. Could you imagine a woman who's been raped and she has an anxiety disorder, she has PTSD, and she wants to get a concealed carry permit or a weapon to make herself feel safe? With a lot of these anti-gun laws that they try to propose, she wouldn't be allowed to defend herself.
Yeah, as is, there's many situations where, a person can have a mental illness, but still be functioning and stuff like that, and not be a threat to the rest of society.
The vast majority of people that have mental illness are not a danger to anyone. They just have problems, and it's a medical problem. It's almost as bad as saying, hey, since you're in a wheelchair, we don't think you should be allowed to own a handgun.
Yeah, well, actually, here's a good example. Let's say you went through a really nasty mass pileup car crash on a highway. There was probably about 15 people that died. It was a really bad winter. Paramedics couldn't get there. People were stuck in their vehicles, freezing to death from and bleeding out from their injuries and stuff like that. And let's say also a tanker leaked fuel, caught fire, and burnt a quarter of the cars that were involved in the wreck. You were looking maybe 90 cars.
You're painting such a pretty picture, Bunny.
Most this person is now suffering from PTSD, but they live in a bad neighborhood. They want to be able to protect their home and all that stuff. Their PTSD from that car crash is not going to impact their ability to defend themselves properly or be a threat to everybody else. Their PTSD is probably from the issue of driving. They're probably scared to get into a vehicle at that point, or they could be scared of just riding on a major highway. They always take the back roads and stuff like that. They have a compulsory thing where a compulsory fear of the highways. They will never go near a major interstate ever again. They'll ride on a back highway or road or whatever, but just to avoid a major highway, a major roadway or anything like that has a lot of traffic. Or they'll travel only at night. It does not. The thing is, there's varying issues of degrees, even within certain kinds of issues. Oh, and China Lynn, a lot of cops have PTSD, are carrying guns. What about that? There's a chance that we would all of a sudden start disqualifying cops because they have former military experience. Because we often.
Well, what happens more often than not when they pass a law like that, they write an amendment to exclude law enforcement. There's so many dozens of laws that I've read to where they take away a right to the general population, but they allow law enforcement to do it. It's just stupid. But that's what they would do.
Yeah, but anyway, let's go ahead and hopefully we can wrap this up because we're going into overtime here.
Yes.
And he's the Parkland shooter.
The government failed, period.
He totally qualified for having a weapon.
The FBI failed, the state failed, the sheriff failed, the local police failed, the school authorities failed,
help me understand
Child Protective Services failed,
me understand.
the local mental health authorities failed.
Help me
they
understand
all
this.
had more than adequate...
Okay. You just help me understand, how did he violate a law, or was he convicted of a law that's something that would have kept him from having a weapon?
There is no documented evidence that he was.
Was there a legal way to prevent him from having a weapon?
Yes, there was.
What is it?
If any of those levels of government had acted based on the information available to them, he would not have been able to purchase a firearm.
But he was able to.
Government failed. Government was the problem.
Okay, and so, but if he had bought a weapon and was walking down the street and going to that school to shoot it up, then they couldn't have stopped him.
Well, you just said going to the school to shoot it up. For one thing, there's a federal gun-free zone law dealing with schools. One of the failures of the school was to fail to restrict access to the school. So they had specific notice of his misconduct. They restricted him from carrying a backpack onto the campus while he was a student and failed to refer the matter to the police.
Okay, so real quickly, we're running out of time. Saturday, peaceful demonstration.
I just love how this simpering worshiper of government and authority was just going. Every time the man would point out the fact that the government failed at another level of it, he was literally becoming stymied. The quote unquote news, the journalist was going, it was just beautiful.
Like, yeah, and the thing is he is, I mean, the guy with Open Carry Texas, he handled that very well. And as is, with the Parkland shooting, there was many levels of government failure. There were so many domestic disturbance calls, especially where there could have easily been an applicable domestic violence charges applied. Guess what? When you get a domestic violence charge in many states, you are not able to get a firearm until either the charge is actually dismissed from court or you've gone through all that process. And even then, just having a misdemeanor domestic violence charge can ban you outright from ever owning a firearm within that state.
The same thing with stalking or a restraining order. If you get a restraining order in the majority of U.S. states, you've lost your gun rights forever. Well, I should say the state claims you've lost your gun rights, because I believe you have a right to defend yourself, but the state claims the right to put you in a cage if you do.
Yeah, and the funny thing is, people's like, we need to pass more laws. No, enforce the damn laws that you already have existing. What was going on with the Parkland incident was failure to enforce the laws that existed. Or with that church shooting that happened earlier this year, that was a failure to enforce the laws that existed, where they did not put the proper paperwork forward. The guy was able to legally purchase the firearm and then go and do that shooting, when he should have not been able to do that, because according to the laws that were already in place, he should have been banned. But because of failure on the administrative side of things, those checks and balances were never instituted, where he would have been prevented from purchasing a firearm. There is many cases where these things could have been prevented if proper actions were taken by the authorities that were overseeing or had them reported to them on these issues.
It's looking like at least 3 dozen opportunities that government had the opportunity to do something about this kid, and they failed to do so. I mean, what I most adore about this whole issue of the Parkland shooting and the gun debate and this public dialogue is watching statists, watching people that think that government is going to somehow save them and protect them, watching their cognitive dissonance bump up against reality. You know, like the simple reality that police, I'll say it again, I talked this into the ground at the beginning of the broadcast, but police have no responsibility to defend human life. Those 4 sheriff's deputies that stood outside and didn't go in and try to help those students when they were all getting killed, I produced a video on my YouTube channel talking about this issue and talking about the sheriff and talking about how they failed. And people have made dozens and dozens and dozens of comments that those police are going to get sued, or they're going to lose money, or they'll be held accountable. And people are telling me that the police are going to be sued. No, they're not. Those cops aren't going to be sued because they're legally protected when they fail to defend human life. It's written into our laws that they can't be sued for that. You know, I'm at that point where I need to see Fluffy Kitten, so we need to end the broadcast soon.
Okay, yeah. Well, anyway, we're at the end of the hour. I'll give my final statements. As it is, people have the legal right to open carry in the state of Texas. I mean, it's ingrained in the law, the state law itself, and the way the law is written. A city ordinance, a county ordinance cannot override that. While you may have your concerns and all that stuff, just like with open filming, open carrying is legal. And so you just have to get used to it. Educate yourself in the matter. If it impacts your life in a negative way, learn about it. Become more educated in the matter. You got the internet. When you got a free time, sitting waiting for the bus, or when you got a quiet time when you're taking a crap or something like that, pull out your smartphone. Do a little bit of research. Understand the situation. Understand the laws that apply to you. Understand maybe the firearm itself might scare you a little bit. Learn more about it. Understand the differences between what the military uses and what the civilians are allowed to own and have in their possession. Not to mention also, there is a big difference between what the civilian population of the United States allowed to own and purchase for firearms. It may look military-ish, but there's a chance it might even just fire 9mm rounds. It might not be. It just might look that way. If I wanted to, I can make a gun, a replica technical gun, and a 50 caliber gun, and throw it on the back of the truck, and that would be completely legal in many states. So just keep these things in mind. Educate yourself on the issue, especially when it comes to civil rights. We're battling this with just the camera issue for the last 5 years myself. Mike Bluehair has been doing this a lot longer with the whole cop watching stuff. I mean, educate yourself. You're allowed to record in public. In many states, you're allowed to open carry in public and stuff like that. There's a lot more laws and regulations around that, but still, people are legally allowed to do it in many states. As is, do you want to go first with your closing statements? Closing promotion thing, or?
Sure, I'll go right ahead. Well, I'm very happy to announce that Claire Burnish, the former writer for the Free Thought Project and the Anti-Media and Subversive Pen, will be on talking about censorship, fake news, how the internet is used to manipulate people. We'll be discussing all those things, and she has also taken the liberty to bullet point out a bunch of links that we will be talking about, and we're going to get into the nuts and bolts of how the whole fake news meme and fake news fervor that's been proliferated through all of everything on the web. It's basically been weaponized to quell free speech, and we're going to talk about that a lot on Wednesday, and I'm very excited to have Claire on. She is literally one of the smartest people I've ever met, and I'm just really excited to have this happen. And let's see, you guys heard my spiel. You know, if you feel inclined to help a brother out, smash that super chat, because you know homeboy needs to buy a new pair of shoes. There's also another way you could economically help me out and help keep this strategic noncompliance and my cop watching on the road, is signing up for Virtual Shield. Virtual Shield is a virtual private network that anonymizes your internet activity, and they're one of the better ones. Ever since I became an affiliate with Virtual Shield, I've realized that their infrastructure isn't even set up to monitor your internet activity while you're doing it. The only thing that they'll give law enforcement is your name and your address, but your actual web activity that they bounced off all the other nodes, they will not give that up because their infrastructure is not even set up to record that information. So they can't. There's no physical way for them to do it. So yeah, sign up for Virtual Shield VPN. More details about that is underneath this video, underneath a little funny, spill that I can't say out loud because I laugh too much. But that's it. Just thank you guys so much for watching.
Oh, thank you for the $10 super chat, Alpha 2204 Alpha, and I hope to hear more about what's going on tomorrow. But yeah, as is Mike Bluehair's self-discipline on not giggling and all that stuff is very difficult for him. So, but anyway. Continuing on real fast, as is, I am broadcasting on 5 different platforms right now: YouTube, Twitch, Periscope, Mixer, and Stream.me. As is, you can catch Strategic Non-Compliance twice a week, Wednesdays at 3 p.m. Pacific time frame, so this way East Coast people have a chance to get off work and enjoy the show, and 6 p.m. Fridays, so this way West Coast people can enjoy the show before they go out bar hopping. I don't think I'm going to do bar hopping tonight, maybe tomorrow, something like that. But anyway, as is, stay tuned to our channels for additional stuff. Thank you for the subscribe, Club Bub. Yeah, Club Bub there. And we'll definitely be around. This show definitely went longer than expected. We didn't get a chance to cover other stuff, but we'll cover it in another show of fun topics and stuff like that. We'll see you next week, everybody. Have a nice night.